It begins with a voice that millions thought they knew. Calm, measured, and suddenly unguarded. Kirk Frost speaks and the room tightens. Within seconds, the tone shifts from guarded celebrity to something raw and human, a confession framed by years of silence. There is a single line that breaks the quiet. "I need to tell the truth." Those 5 words land like a detonator. Comments freeze, timelines split, and viewers hold their breath. A revelation is coming, and it feels like the end of one era and the start of another. We cut to flashes, a late-night clip, grainy footage of a house no longer private, a DM screenshot that glows on a phone screen. The visuals whisper scandal, but the voice fills the room. Measured regret, clipped denial, fragments of memory. The camera lingers on a hand closing a door. The soundtrack drops. This is not gossip. This is not a viral tease. This is him speaking, candid, framed, and undeniably human. His cadence slows when he mentions family. His eyes harden when he mentions loyalty. Somewhere between the pauses, accusations gather like storm clouds. Fans who idolized him feel unmoored. Critics sharpen their knives. Allies look away. And across timelines, the social feed fractures into camps. Disbelief, anger, sorrow. Someone posts a screenshot. Someone else posts a question. The debate begins before the full story is even told. Tonight, we follow secrets through late-night decisions, unguarded messages and the public moments that turned private pain into headline fodder, mapping choices that will redefine the story of love and hip-hop. But beneath the headlines and the memes, there is a deeper pattern. Choices stretched across years. Small decisions that compound into a major rupture. To understand how this voice could flip a culture, we must trace the path that led here. Before the cameras, before the confession, there was a couple that seemed unshakable. Kirk and Rasheeda Frost, the empire builders of love and hip-hop Atlanta. They were the blueprint for hustle, loyalty, and Black entrepreneurship on screen. From managing music to raising kids, their dynamic became a central storyline. Love under pressure, business under spotlight, and fame under fire. Yet behind that reality show gloss lived the quiet unraveling no one wanted to acknowledge. Producers knew the chemistry. Fans felt the tension. Each episode blurred the line between entertainment and emotional warfare. Kirk, the businessman, the strategist, often came across as calculated. Rasheeda, the grounded visionary, carried both the brand and the heartbreak. Together, they sold resilience. But off-camera, that resilience was cracking. In industry circles, whispers started small, missed studio sessions, late-night calls, long absences from family events. The more cameras followed, the more real life retreated into secrecy. And when the first cheating rumors broke years ago, audiences treated it as just TV drama. But insiders knew the scripts didn't write everything. Every interview, every reunion special painted them as survivors of scandal, stronger than before. But healing in public is its own kind of trauma. And while the world moved on, something inside Kirk didn't. He became quieter, more detached. Even Rasheeda, known for her composure, began posting cryptic captions. "Protect your peace. Energy doesn't lie. Sometimes love hurts differently." Each one felt like a message coded in pain. So when Kirk finally opened his mouth years later and said, "I need to tell the truth," fans weren't just shocked by what he said. They were haunted by everything he hadn't. Because to understand that moment, we have to return to the weeks before it all erupted. The subtle tension, the hushed arguments, the choices that turned a private fracture into a cultural earthquake, and that breaking point. It arrived one humid night in Atlanta, when a single phone call set off a chain of events no one could control. It was a humid Friday night in Atlanta, the kind where the air feels heavy, and tension hangs thicker than the heat. Kirk Frost sat alone in his car outside a studio on Peachtree. His phone buzzed once, then again. The messages came rapid fire, screenshots, timestamps, and a single voice note that changed everything. The first message wasn't from Rasheeda. It was from a mutual friend, the kind that drifts between loyalty and gossip. "You might want to see this," it read. Attached was a screenshot of a DM thread. His name, his picture, and a conversation that looked all too familiar. At first, he thought it was doctored. Then came the voice note. Unmistakable laughter, followed by a name he wished he'd never hear again. Within minutes, his heart raced faster than his thoughts. He called the number twice, no answer. The third time, the line clicked, but silence lingered. He whispered, "Don't play with me right now." But the only response was a hang-up. That same night, Rasheeda was hosting a live session with fans. She smiled through questions, laughed through small talk, unaware that a storm was brewing just miles away. Meanwhile, Kirk drove aimlessly down 285, his mind a carousel of regret and paranoia. By midnight, the screenshots hit the blogs. The Shade Room, Lipstick Alley, YouTube reactors. Within hours, it wasn't just a rumor, it was content. The internet dissected every emoji, every message, every timeline gap. And at 2:13 a.m., a video surfaced, grainy, shaky, and time-stamped from a club 2 weeks prior. It showed Kirk in conversation with a woman, his hand on her shoulder, a laugh too comfortable for friendship. The caption read, "So this is why he's been quiet." The internet exploded. Memes flooded in before dawn. Hashtags trended. Even castmates dropped cryptic emojis under fan posts. By sunrise, Rasheeda's silence became its own statement. Fans watched her unfollow him in real time. Screenshots became proof, reactions became judgment, and every feed turned into a battleground of loyalty and disbelief. But what no one knew was that behind that social chaos, another layer of truth was quietly forming, one that would soon rewrite everything. By the next morning, Atlanta was awake, and the internet was on fire. And the words Kirk Frost weren't just trending. They were everywhere. Twitter threads unraveled timelines, TikToks broke down body language, and YouTube channels looped that same club clip 1,000 times over. Everyone had a theory. Everyone had an angle. Rasheeda's Instagram page became a battlefield. Under each post, comments ranged from heartbreak to mockery. She deserves better. Once a cheater, always a cheater. This can't be real. Not again. Her most recent story, a muted selfie in the studio with the caption, "No words," turned into a viral prayer circle. Fans decoded the silence as pain, as strength, as goodbye. Meanwhile, Kirk stayed quiet. No tweets, no statements, no defense. But his silence screamed louder than any denial. Every gossip site refreshed hourly. Blogs replayed clips from past seasons. Moments once seen as harmless banter now dissected as foreshadowing. Even old castmates chimed in. One posted, "Energy don't lie." Another wrote, "Some folks never learn." Those cryptic remarks only deepened the speculation. Was this the relapse of an old pattern or the reveal of something darker? Within 48 hours, podcasts, live streams, and reaction videos turned the scandal into a full-blown cultural debate. Some said Kirk was being framed. Others claimed the footage was just the tip of a bigger iceberg. Screenshots of texts, some real, some fake, began circulating like wildfire. Through it all, Rasheeda's composure became its own story. She kept posting, fitness promos, makeup lines, family dinners, but behind the filters, fans sensed a fracture. The calm before something louder. Then came the soundbite that reignited everything. A leaked voicemail. A voice, allegedly Kirk's, saying, "We said no cameras, remember?" That one line reshaped the entire narrative. Now the question wasn't just whether he cheated again. It was who had been recording, why they were doing it, and what else might be hiding behind the curtain. And just when the frenzy seemed to peak, someone dropped the folder. The one filled with receipts no one was ready for. The internet went still, that kind of eerie quiet before chaos. Then a tweet hit at 9:47 p.m. "If y'all want the truth, check my page." The handle belonged to a name half forgotten from love and hip-hop's past, a woman once linked to Kirk in older rumors, now resurfacing with what she called proof that ends all lies. Within minutes, screenshots began flooding timelines. DMs between Kirk and the woman, timestamps from recent months, not years ago. The tone was intimate, coded, yet unmistakable. One message read, "Keep this low, you know how she gets." Another said, "We can't risk cameras again." Then came the video, a short, dimly lit clip filmed inside a car. The voice, calm, deep, undeniably familiar, said, "I told you she can't find out about this." Fans slowed it down, filtered the audio, matched it to Kirk's known speech patterns. There was little room for denial. Within an hour, every major gossip outlet mirrored the drop. YouTube reactors went live. TikTok editors spliced the receipts into timelines comparing outfits, dates, and known filming days. It was a full-scale investigation powered by fans. But it wasn't just the cheating implication that stunned people. It was the emotional tone. The messages hinted at a long-running connection, one that survived even after public apologies and televised tears. They weren't the words of a stranger. They were the remnants of something that never fully ended. Kirk's name trended globally that night. Brands he partnered with paused campaigns. PR teams scrambled to draft statements. Meanwhile, Rasheeda's social silence deepened. No stories, no posts, no captions. Just absence. At midnight, a final leak surfaced. A screen recording of a voice memo labeled "Draft Apology." It was Kirk's voice, practicing what sounded like a confession. "It's complicated, but I messed up again. I don't expect forgiveness this time." Fans froze. Some wept for Rasheeda. Others mocked the déjà vu of it all. The memes came fast. History repeats itself. Love and Hip Hop reloaded. Kirk Frost Chronicles. But amid the laughter and outrage, a shift was beginning. Not in what people believed, but in who they started to feel sorry for. Because by sunrise, public sympathy had quietly begun to move, and it wasn't toward him. By the next morning, everything had flipped. The audience that once rolled their eyes at Rasheeda's calm now saw it as strength. The woman they called too forgiving was suddenly the one they rooted for. The receipts had done more than expose a man. They exposed a pattern. Clips from old Love and Hip Hop episodes resurfaced. Moments where Rasheeda stood quietly as Kirk deflected, denied, or joked away serious accusations. Fans replayed those scenes with new eyes. What once looked like patience now looked like endurance. What once seemed like loyalty now felt like survival. Kirk's silence, once seen as control, began to look like guilt. Each hour he refused to speak, the sympathy drained further. Meanwhile, Rasheeda's old interviews, where she spoke about rebuilding trust and starting over, became rallying cries. The internet crowned her the queen of composure. Brands began publicly supporting her. Makeup companies reposted her past collaborations. Female entrepreneurs tagged her in posts about resilience. Even former critics admitted they'd misjudged her. One viral tweet read, "Rasheeda been protecting her peace while the world laughed. Now look who's laughing last." Kirk's camp tried damage control. A friend posted that, "Not everything you see is real," hinting at edits and traps. But it was too late. The narrative had shifted. This wasn't just infidelity, it was emotional fatigue played out over a decade. Behind closed doors, producers at VH1 reportedly debated how to handle the footage. Could they re-edit the next season to include his side? Or had the audience already made their verdict? Through it all, Rasheeda stayed silent. Not out of weakness, but out of intent. Every post, every smile, every pause carried power. And just when the public thought they had seen her final move, a wave of corporate and industry responses began unfolding. People who'd once benefited from the chaos were now choosing sides. Because when brands, networks, and insiders start reacting, that's when a scandal turns into an empire shift. When the dust began to settle, the business side of the storm took over. Executives, managers, and PR teams scrambled as the scandal threatened to swallow reputations whole. The entertainment industry loves drama, but not when it starts costing money. VH1 insiders whispered that emergency meetings were held that weekend. Producers debated whether Kirk's footage would even make it to air. Some wanted to lean. into the controversy for ratings. Others warned that it could permanently damage the show's credibility. The brand that once thrived on chaos was now at risk of collapsing under its own spectacle. Kirk's camp finally released a short statement through a publicist. "Private matters should remain private. We ask for understanding and respect during this time." It was short, sterile, and offered no denial. Fans saw it for what it was, an attempt to stall. Meanwhile, Rasheeda's team moved differently. Instead of speaking, she showed. Her store, Pressed Boutique, suddenly dropped a new collection titled Unbothered. The campaign featured strong poses, muted tones, and a single tagline: "Peace is the new luxury." Within hours, it sold out. That move wasn't just business, it was strategy. She turned pain into power, scandal into marketing, heartbreak into brand identity. Influencers reposted her line. Celebrities commented hearts under her posts. The message was clear: she wasn't playing defense anymore. Networks noticed. Talk shows invited her for interviews. Podcasts wanted the Rasheeda take. Even mainstream outlets like The Shade Room shifted tone, from gossip to admiration. The tide had fully turned. Behind the scenes, Kirk was reportedly advised to lay low and avoid social media altogether. But silence in the age of receipts feels like guilt. Each day he stayed quiet, Rasheeda's influence grew. And as she built her own wave of empowerment and quiet resilience, another layer of the story was forming. Not in the public's timeline, but deep inside both of them. Because no matter the PR spin, behind every brand and every post, there's still the emotional wreckage left behind. Beneath the filters, sponsorships, and viral takes, there was still the human wreckage. Two people bound by history, children, and a love story that had been televised for the world to dissect. For Kirk, the quiet nights hit hardest. The noise outside was deafening, but inside, it was silence that screamed. Every notification reminded him of what he'd lost, not just his image, but the one person who always believed he could be better. He replayed old memories, their first store opening, laughter during long studio nights, the moment Rasheeda looked at him and said, "Don't make me regret this again." Now those words echoed like prophecy. Rasheeda, on the other hand, wasn't angry. She was tired. The kind of tired that comes when pain stops surprising you. Cameras had taught her to smile through hurt, but this time, the weight felt different. Every brand deal, every photo shoot, every business call was layered with invisible grief. Friends say she spent nights journaling, praying, and walking around her home in silence, not breaking down, but breaking free. There's a quiet strength in detachment, and she had finally found it. Kirk's circle urged him to fix it before it's too late. But how do you fix something that's been cracked in the same place twice? He started recording himself late at night, voice memos no one would ever hear. In one, he whispered, "I did this. Not her. Me." Those confessions would never trend. They weren't for the world. They were the kind of truths that only exist in the dark, raw, unfinished, and real. But even in that silence, fate wasn't done yet. Because just when everyone thought the story had reached its emotional end, a revelation surfaced that would change everything. It started with a podcast, small, unassuming, hosted by a former love and hip-hop assistant producer who claimed to have files nobody ever saw. Listeners didn't expect much, but halfway through the episode, the tone shifted. The host said, "There's something about this Kirk and Rasheeda story the public never knew, something the network buried." Then came the drop. A never-aired production clip from years ago, filmed after the first cheating scandal, long before this one. In it, Kirk sat in a confession-style interview, looking directly into the camera. His eyes were swollen, his voice unsteady. "They told me to play the villain," he said. "They needed a storyline, so I gave them one. But somewhere in that act, I lost my real marriage." The clip spread like wildfire. Fans were stunned. Could it be that the narrative everyone mocked was partly constructed? That some of his cold moments were orchestrated for TV ratings? The internet split instantly. Half the audience felt sympathy. Maybe Kirk had been pushed into a persona that cost him his family. The other half refused to excuse him, saying he could have stopped any time. But either way, the narrative had changed. Rasheeda's silence broke that evening. She posted a single black and white photo of herself in the studio with the caption, "You can't script healing." 8 words, calm, pointed, and final. The post shattered records, drawing millions of likes and thousands of comments. Later that night, another leaked email surfaced, an exchange between producers discussing keeping Kirk's storyline consistent and protecting audience engagement. It didn't erase his mistakes, but it reframed them. The man fans had demonized might have been both the architect and the pawn of his downfall. Still, the damage was done. Love, family, and reputation had already paid the price. But one truth now stood clear. This wasn't just a story about infidelity or fame. It was about manipulation, emotional exhaustion, and the dangerous line between reality and entertainment. And as the world processed that revelation, the question shifted from did he cheat to what did fame do to both of them? That's when the cultural conversation began to change. The revelation cracked something open, not just in fans, but in the culture itself. For years, love and hip-hop had blurred the boundary between reality and performance, between heartbreak and ratings. Now, people began asking whether the pain they'd consumed as entertainment had ever really belonged to them. Talk shows dissected the moment. Think pieces poured in. When the plot becomes the person, how TV exploited black love for clicks. Critics argued that what happened to Kirk and Rasheeda wasn't just betrayal, it was emotional labor repackaged as drama. Others defended the format, saying everyone involved knew what they signed up for. But the tone had shifted. Empathy was replacing mockery. Viewers began revisiting old seasons, noticing how pain had been edited for laughter. They saw the tears behind the memes, the exhaustion behind the branding. And for the first time, they questioned not just Kirk's actions, but their own appetite for spectacle. Rasheeda, now stepping into a new phase, became a symbol of quiet endurance. She started speaking subtly in interviews, never naming names, never weaponizing emotion, but always anchoring her words in truth. "Reality TV showed our story," she said, "but it never showed our healing." Her message resonated far beyond fans. Mental health advocates cited her as an example of boundaries in public relationships. Brands began promoting authenticity over exposure. Even castmates from other franchises admitted they'd been pressured to play exaggerated roles for attention, and Kirk, the once silent figure, found himself both vilified and humanized. People didn't forgive easily, but they began to understand. The villain had become a mirror reflecting the price of televised vulnerability. By the end of the month, one thing was clear. This wasn't just a story about 2 people. It was a wake-up call for an entire genre. But while the culture debated its conscience, the people inside the story were still figuring out what healing looked like. Weeks later, the noise faded into something quieter, not silence, but acceptance. The storm that once lived online had shifted into something more personal. Both Kirk and Rasheeda had stopped addressing the drama publicly, yet their actions told the story no interview could. Kirk was seen back in the studio, working with unsigned artists, low profile, no press, no reality cameras. For the first time in years, he wasn't performing a version of himself. Those close to him said he'd started therapy and was focused on being present, not perfect. Rasheeda, meanwhile, leaned fully into her empire. Pressed Boutique thrived, her fitness brand expanded, and she began mentoring younger women in business. Every move radiated purpose, a soft kind of power earned through endurance. Then came a rare moment that reminded fans of their shared history. A fan-recorded video showed the 2 of them attending their son's event, standing side by side, not as lovers, but as partners in parenthood. No smiles for the cameras, just mutual respect in the quiet space between them. That image spoke louder than any apology. It wasn't reconciliation, but it was peace. A hard-won, adult kind of peace. Online, fans debated whether forgiveness was possible. Some wanted them to rebuild. Others said closure was enough. But both agreed. This chapter was different. It wasn't about who was right or wrong anymore. It was about growth. As one viral comment put it, they've both taken their pain and turned it into purpose. That's real healing. The credits of this emotional saga were beginning to roll. But before the screen faded to black, there was one final reflection. One last truth that framed it all in perspective. In the end, love and hip-hop gave the world a story, but time revealed the truth behind it. What began as entertainment became a mirror, forcing us to confront the cost of turning human hearts into headlines. Kirk's voice, once defensive and distant, now sounds like reflection. Rasheeda's silence, once seen as restraint, now reads as power. Together, they remind us that fame doesn't fix what's broken. It magnifies it. And sometimes healing isn't about reunion. It's about release. Their journey shows how love can evolve, from chaos to clarity, from pain to purpose. No villains, no heroes. Just people learning under the harshest spotlight imaginable. As the world scrolls to its next scandal, this story lingers. A cautionary tale about what happens when the performance ends and the cameras turn off. So now, we turn to you. Whose truth do you believe? Was this a redemption arc or just another rerun of heartbreak? Comment your thoughts below, because this, right here, is the real story of love and hip-hop.